Welcome back to the Wingspan Podcast, episode 33. I'm Doug Barak, joined by my co-host Chris Mahala and Nets Daly, and our special guest. Our guest is the head coach of Sydney Kings in the NBL, assistant coach for the Australian Boomers, and the former head coach of Long Island Nets.
We welcome Coach Will Weaver to the podcast. Thank you for taking some time every day to join Doug and I. What's going on, man?
It's my pleasure. It's great to talk with you guys.
Great to have you.
Great to have you. So I guess we'll just lead it off with what you've been up to since COVID-19 put the world at halt.
Yeah, a fair bit. My family and I live near the beaches of Sydney, and so we've had the opportunity to enjoy that quite a bit. Winter, materially different than living on the East Coast in Philly and Brooklyn over the last 7-8 years. So trying to take advantage of the sunshine. I've been teaching myself to surf, which has been a blast, and trying not to drown, trying to not get pushed out of the set, as the dorky American basketball coach. So I'm trying to, blend in with the locals, have a bit of camouflage in that effort. And that is challenging. It's obviously been far more challenging for other folks than it has for us here, gratefully. And that's given us the chance to connect and learn from a really wide range of people, stay in good touch, and come up with some recurring conversations about how we do things better, across the board. So spoken to a lot of football coaches, a lot of rugby coaches, cricket, obviously other basketball coaches, people in finance and entrepreneurs and the startup world, just trying to learn as much as and benefit really from the rare opportunity to have all this unblocked time. And clearly recruiting a team for next year and supporting our guys through staying fit and getting better takes a big chunk of that, but you're still left with far more than you're used to. So I've been trying to put it to good work.
It's great to hear. Glad you didn't get wiped out too hard by any waves. So glad you can join us.
Yeah, thankfully there's no video.
Yeah. So can you talk about your journey becoming a head coach?
Sure. I think maybe the most unique aspect of that for me was the really special opportunity to sit next to and support and try to nurture and be nurtured by a bunch of first-time head coaches. So high school coaching at Sam Houston State, where I was an assistant coach, in Philadelphia, in Brooklyn, all those guys were taking a big step and a new step for them, and either being first-time head coaches or being the first time they're coaching at the level that they're coaching at. And so it's given me a number of rich learning opportunities to figure out how to cope with that. And I think that the circumstances of each of those teams were interesting and edifying, but in particular, the chance to write notes to myself and imagine, all right, well, at some stage, you hope that this is going to be you. So how are you going to do it differently? How are you going to do it better? How are you going to bring who you are and apply it to an opportunity like one of these? And so I'm forever grateful that Sean Marks and Kenny Atkinson gave me that opportunity with Long Island. And there were so many times I felt just slightly ahead of the game, or maybe a little less behind the curve than a normal guy would, just because I had so many great mentors for sure that I could reach out to, but that I had already had practice thinking and sort of forecasting what are the really hard bits and where might I really struggle and what do I need to improve on before that day comes. And much the same coming to Sydney. So I don't know if, besides maybe raising a child, I haven't experienced a sharper learning curve, but the chance to represent programs like Long Island, Brooklyn, obviously, Sydney, that's a special thing. And this last fall, Australian fall, American spring, I had the chance to serve as the head coach for our national team in the Asia Cup qualifiers. And that was a whole nother level of representing our adopted country and sort of a second home for us as a foreigner. So that was an incredibly special experience and brought yet another set of learnings for me.
For sure. And when did you think in life that you wanted to become a head coach or just coaching in general? Like, when did that become a thing for you?
As going into my freshman year of college at the University of Texas, I spoke to a mentor of mine that had taught me in high school, and he was a lawyer. I felt like he's one of the most sage guys I'd been around, and he said, "What do you want to do?" I was like, "I have no idea. Like maybe this, maybe that. Maybe just try to stall as much as I can and major in 9 things and get into grad school or law school or business school or something on the back end of this thing." But when I sort of gave him my rubric for how I thought about it, I wanted it to be competitive. I feel like I get a lot of energy from that. I wanted it to be something that allowed me to be a great husband and a father someday. And I wanted it to be something that was at least somewhat positive for the world. I didn't want to push money around necessarily.
For sure.
And his feedback to me was, well, I know a lot of lawyers and none of them are enjoyed. I don't know if I'm happy of them. So if you're interested in coaching, which is one of the ideas I was batting around, he goes, "You're welcome to volunteer with me and our middle school boys team that I've coached for the last 15 years. And so as a freshman in college, I was rushing out of class at 2:30 in the afternoon to get across town and volunteer with 6th graders. And about a week into that, I'm diagramming plays in the margin of my notebooks and just terrible, making all kinds of stupid mistakes. And his generosity in letting me experience that. And then at the end of that season, stepping down, I'm pretty sure to open up a slot for me to have an opportunity to coach one of those kids' teams myself. And it really has been a 18-year journey since then, trying to get good at this.
Well, I got to ask you too. Obviously, a lot of viewers of our podcast know I'm very big on mentors. So, who have been some of your mentors throughout your career? Best advice you received, and some of the advice that you would pass on to people that are lower that are looking to get into the field of coaching like you are currently?
Well, yeah, the mentors question is hard because of how many there are. And I think that touching on the end of your question at the beginning, none of us can discount just how much luck plays a role in all this. And so I am forever grateful and extremely fortunate that I ended up spending the time alongside supporting people that were generous enough to let me in. Rick Barnes let me sit with him after games, after losses no less, in our coaches lounge in Texas as a first-year graduate assistant volunteer, and listen and watch how he dissected the game on his Cowboy remote with a VHS because he liked the rewind and fast forward being smoother than on a digital copy. And, it would take several hours and there'd be 15 or 20 notes that he'd want me to keep track of or remind him of or give back to the assistants. But that experience, on a team with Kevin Durant and DJ Augustine and Damian James and Dexter Pittman and a bunch of future pros that were all puppies, they were all 17-year-olds as freshmen together, being coached by one of the winningest college coaches of all times. It started there and then on and on. My time in Philly I was surrounded by exemplary thinkers and coaches and teammates and just the diversity of experience that we had from Brett Brown coaching overseas and coaching national teams for 17 years. And then obviously his experience in San Antonio, building that dynasty. Vance Wahlberg on our staff, one of the real innovators of basketball. Mike D'Antoni joining us eventually, having the chance to work with him for a season. Our front office, I think, was, extremely forward thinking in the way that they were approaching building a team. And the fruits of that labor, I think, are on display even today. So Sam Hinkie and Sachin Gupta and Ben Falk and Brandon Williams and Rod Baker and the incredible scouts, Phil Jabbour and Danny Mills, like all those guys. That's all before Brooklyn. And then you guys have a sense of just the quality of people that are in Brooklyn, the chance to sit in rooms and argue with Jock Vaughn and Adam Harrington and Brett Brielmeyer and Pablo Prigioni. Like those are priceless. And then to go down the hall and sit in the conference room and argue with, Trajan Langdon and Glenn DePaul and Sean Marks and Matt Riccardi. And like, those are the things that help me feel equipped to run a team and build a team here in Sydney. And I think the reason they helped me more than anything is because they shined a light on just how hard it is and the level of humility that you have to have and the level of diligence that you got to bring to it in order to give yourself even a puncher's chance.
Definitely. So how was coaching your first season as head coach of the Sydney Kings, and how would you evaluate it overall?
Well, we think of it as more than just a discrete season. We were trying to establish a program, and this program is one of the proudest in the history of this league, and tons of championship banners are hanging in the rafters. Legends of the game have played here. But for us, it was about trying to transition it into being the most modern and the most player-focused program on the continent, in any sport. And so that's a big goal. But in anything, right, your ownership is the biggest competitive advantage that exists. So the ownership here had a really bold vision for what they wanted this to look like. Brought in myself and Chris Pongrass, that he worked with the Memphis Grizzlies for a number of years, and so identified that bringing some best practices from the NBA, from the G League even, was something that he was interested in doing. And we had success insofar as we led the regular season win total throughout the season for the first time in history, and made the finals before COVID interrupted those. But the things that I think about are just the people that we brought in, the opportunity to bring Jayshawn Tate from Belgium. He was first team All-League. He's going to be playing in the NBA next year. Obviously coaching Andrew Bogut in what might be his final season of professional basketball was an incredible privilege for me. And there's a number of other young, exciting players, including young Didi Louzada, draft rights owned by the New Orleans Pelicans, and the opportunity to collaborate with their program and provide him the opportunity to grow and prepare himself for what's coming for him next. And the excitement we have to bring him back for a second year, which we weren't anticipating. But all of those things feel like landmarks that we're on the right path, but a long way to go.
Yeah, definitely. Can you talk about some of the differences between coaching in the NBA G League, the NBA, and also the NBL?
Yeah, sure. For me, like someone that tries to prioritize learning and growth and walk the walk on that, as much as we ask our players to, the differences are gold. The age cohorts, much younger cohort in the G League than here in Australia. The feeling, our sort of primary goal, like this is a win now situation, like Sydney Kings don't rebuild. So we're that pressure, that feeling, it permeates a program and is good. It's great. It's eustress. It's not distress. So it's good pressure. At the same time, it's in both places, we had goals far greater than just producing one or two prospects in the G League and helping cultivate them, or winning, 20, 30 games in a season here in the NBL. And so trying to accomplish those important goals and keep our eye on the ball there, while creating systems that can generate success and be iterative in the way that they build on each other over time, is something that is very similar. It's just the set of challenges and maybe the priorities that you have in each are different. But you take lessons from each and port them into the other. So coaching the national team, this February, we included, I think it was 6 debutantes, guys that had never put on the Australian singlet before with the senior men's team. And that felt a little bit like my days in Philly, where we were filling the gym up with young, hungry, high potential guys and knowing we were going to take some licks, but that at the end of the day was going to give us the opportunity to help nurture and uncover Robert Covington and Jeremy Grant and TJ McConnell and guys that Rashawn Holmes and other guys that were going to help the program move forward. And so they're all connected, but yeah, they're extreme, there's really wide diversity, and what could be better for learning?
Yeah, no, definitely. It was a strong process.
Most definitely. Then, Coach, I wanted to get your opinion on the 2 guys that really took headlines when they made their moves to Australia, LaMelo Ball and R.J. Hampton, instead of taking that traditional route, going from college to the pros, the NBA. So if you talk about LaMelo Ball first and kind of what you see as a coach when it comes to his talent level and his skill set and his play, and do you think that his play can translate well into the NBA?
Well, I think that those of us that have the opportunity to sit and get to know and work with and try to maximize the odds of that happening for a number of talented youngsters appreciate just what a hard climb that is. But I think in LaMelo's case specifically, and throw RJ in the same category, the tools are remarkable. I think, there's not a lot of people of LaMelo's size and quickness that play the game like he does at his age, right? Anthony Davis was really good as a senior in high school. Zion Williamson was really good as a senior in high school. And that's really what we were looking at with LaMelo and this thing. Those guys tend to end up being really good when they're 24-year-olds and 28-year-olds and 32-year-olds. So I think that what's exciting about LaMelo is just the versatility that he has, the ability to be a playmaker and learn to not only be dynamic, but become a great decision maker. I think he's well and truly on the path there. And some of the physical aspects that he has means that he's got a chance to become a good defender. So RJ, I'd say his athletic traits are maybe even stronger. And so where he goes and what his ceiling's like as a defender is, I think, quite high. I think the exciting thing for both of them is that their shooting can improve a lot. And that's something you, of course, have to do in basketball to be successful. And especially at perimeter positions, like there's really no hope for you if you can't knock in a shot. And I think there's reason to be excited about both those guys. But the arc of development is long, and the context that these guys go into matters so much. And everything I've heard is really positive about their likelihood of taking advantage of those opportunities. But I'll be interested to see how their career compares to Dede Louzada or Jayshawn Tate or any of these other young guys that have big dreams and a long way to go and are willing to take some risks to get there. It's pretty compelling to watch and be a part of.
It's good analysis. And then let's backtrack a little bit to your time with the Long Island Nets, where I met you covering the team. So looking back at your time in Uniondale and with the Nets organization as a whole, you could even count in your time as an assistant coach on the Brooklyn staff. What stands out to you, and what were some of your favorite memories and moments during your time there? Obviously, the Eastern Conference Championship, Theo Pinson's buzzer beater. There's amounts of little memories and little kind of events that happened throughout the correlation of that whole season, your last season with the Nets, the Long Island Nets. So what are some of those things that really jog your mind when you say, oh, my time with the Long Island Nets? What are those memories that instantly kick in?
It's, of course, always about the relationships that you build and the chance to be a part of and support those guys' journeys. It's interesting. I didn't premeditate this answer. The first thing that's thrown to my mind is I think I was telling Jordan McLaughlin that Shannon Scott was, even though he was back from injury, we were going to keep him as a starter, or it was vice versa. I think what I was telling one of them that I was going to need to replace them in the starting lineup. That was what was best for the team. And the reaction, I can't even remember. What was so amazing is that I don't even remember which one. And that's indicative of the fact that they didn't care. Like, they really didn't care. Like, they really were just happy to compete and help us win that night. And for two really good players that have been the starting point guards their whole lives, in a league that ostensibly is about growing and aspiring to get to the next level and showcasing your abilities over and beyond the success of the team, for them to have the success of their team so front and center was incredible to me. And early on in my head coaching experience there, to feel that and see that and what it meant for how the team was recruited and put together by Trajan and Matt Riccardi. Just all the credit in the world to those guys for finding people like that. And, Jordan obviously has gone on, had really good success in Minnesota, and I think has a lot more success to go. But you could go down the roster. Alan Williams is killing in Russia at the minute. Mitch Creek is a star here back in Australia. But I think the likelihood that he ends up wearing an NBA jersey again in the future is strong. Obviously John and Musa, Theo, those guys were nominally the prospects on our team. But the people that we're surrounded by and the lack of any kind of internal dissension or tension about who matters and who doesn't matter just didn't exist at all. And so that is rare in the G League. And I think is part and parcel of why we had the success that we did. And I've learned many valuable lessons just getting to see that up close and be a part of it. And really connects to Brooklyn's ethos broadly. And I feel like, again, you say Joe Harris and Spencer Dinwiddie and Jared Allen and these guys, like, they've made it count and they've put that spirit into action and are reaping some of the rewards.
And then, Coach, I want to ask you a question as well. I know every NBA team is different in terms of where they stand, if they're contenders, if they're kind of in the middle of the pack, or they're more focused on development. But one question I've had for you as a follow-up is, do you think NBA teams across the board on a broad standpoint are utilizing their G League teams? Do you think that's kind of like do you think that they're utilizing, that they kind of focus on using, because obviously with the Long Island Nets, when you were the coach there, they sent Theo down, they had Allen Williams, you had guys, a couple two-way guys, but on top of that, you had John and Musa going down for a couple assignments, and obviously a lot of other players that are going back and forth and getting those developments. So do you think that a lot of NBA teams are utilizing their G League now as present today?
Well, I think it's trending up, obviously, and that speaks to the sophisticated programs that I've had a chance to work for and work alongside in Philly and Brooklyn. Obviously, the Rockets, the Warriors, the like Miami Heat, like, just incredible leverage that has been created through their G League programs. So I think it's certainly trending that way, but I don't think that every team in the league has the same goal, and that oftentimes it's hard to do everything great. And so I don't fault some teams for identifying that it's not a fit for them. I think conceptually it's a really powerful idea and a really powerful opportunity to take advantage of. But the logistics around it are challenging, and they were challenging in a normal season in terms of proximity, and we were an hour and a half away. They were challenging in terms of timing, and there wasn't any kind of compressed season or any kinds of COVID protocols to deal with. So it's going to be fascinating to see where people devote their resources and how teams cope with not only the fact that there's the newness of potential screening and testing and bubbles and hubs and those sorts of things, but also that it's about to be a new paradigm for scouting, and high school players coming back into availability and contending for draft spots is going to be a very new part of the landscape of the G League. And credit the G League. I was so impressed and appreciative of how supportive and organized and just professional they are as a part of the most sophisticated, professional, organized sporting league on the planet in the NBA. But the program that they're building out by the Bay and the young fellas, the high schoolers that are going to be a part of that thing, make it even more exciting, and I think are going to make teams wrestle with how to best engage with that type of opportunity.
And then, Coach, that's a great answer as well. But two of the coaches that you worked with in the past, Brett Brown and Kenny Atkinson, are currently, their names are popping up in a lot of head coaching vacancies across the league. So I wanted to get your personal kind of experiences working under those two guys. And can you tell our listeners about what kind of coaches they are and kind of your overall takeaway experiences from learning underneath both of those guys?
Yeah, I think the similarities that jump to mind are the diligence and the passion. Both those guys, hard to beat into the office. The deep obsession and enjoyment they have for picking apart the game and helping communicate it to players is you got to be 95th percentile on the planet. They are both incredibly dedicated fathers and husbands. I watched and learned a lot from the way that they organize their lives to keep that as a central part of it, despite being symbolically the face of $2 billion franchises in tough markets, no less, in tough situations. I think that the commitment they have and the strong belief that each of them hold about the spirit a group plays with and the type of people that they want to recruit and the strong opinions they have and the work they'll do to gather evidence to sign players that like Robert Covington, like TJ McConnell, like Joe Harris, like Spencer Dinwiddie. Like those are examples for a reason, because the environment was put in place by those guys, and the effort and the collaboration was possible because of the approach that those guys took in helping those guys get the best out of themselves.
Yeah, definitely. So to transition to the NBA now, so what are your thoughts on the bubble thus far, like the season revival?
Well, it's fascinating to watch, obviously, and we're considering about how to run our season. We're lucky to have appreciably lower infection rates here in Australia than in the United States currently, but it's clearly the most successful, and given the scale of it and the boldness and the difficulty of pulling it off, that was far from assured. But the way that it's been conducted seems to be close to optimal, which is amazing. And we're watching that closely to try to learn lessons about how we could pull something like that off in this current season or maybe in future years. But I can't help but think about those players and staff and volunteers and people cooking them food and cutting their hair that are away from their families for a long time. And I'm certain that was very difficult. So the folks I've spoken to that have had a chance to now get back to what matters are certainly grateful. It doesn't feel like to me it could be a solution for a full season unless you incorporated the people that are near and dear to all those folks and allow them and support them to do what they do. So it'd be interesting to see, I suppose, where it heads.
Yeah, no, if they have to use it next season, they'll probably have to do some tinkering to make family, early on. But I think overall they've done a great job. So a fun question is, what would it take for you to break quarantine? Would it be delivering food or to see family? Like, what kind of things would put the bubble on the line for you, at least?
Yeah, that's a good question. Swimming lessons with my son are pretty great. I feel like that weekly ritual is something that I wouldn't have anticipated being as fun as it is, but has become easily in a tier unto itself of things I enjoy. And that's, I suppose, why I said what I said, that how difficult it is to miss weeks and weeks and weeks, months of piano lessons and dinners and story time and all that kind of stuff. So it certainly relates to that for me.
Yeah, and then what are 5 things that you'd want to have in the bubble with you? Obviously, things like your phone, computer, or you're going to have, but what are some, must-haves when you travel?
Yeah, I'll definitely say I'm a slave to my Google Macs. I've got a big speaker that the people at Google were nice enough to surprise us with when we visited their headquarters as a team a few years ago in Brooklyn. And I don't know if there's any object that has had to endure more stress put on it than our Google Macs has, with our toddler learning that it can play any song on demand that Elmo has ever recorded. So I would take it with me for no other reason than to give my wife a chance to be without it for a period of time and get to avoid Aldo, Elmo, please, for just a few weeks. I'm sure that would earn some brownie points. Yeah, things to read. Obviously, we spend a lot of time in hotel rooms. The WhatsApp with a generous data plan to connect with friends all over the world. I really like dark sleeping rooms, so some sort of way to clip the curtains to keep it dark in there is always a plus. And I think ways to compete and spend time with your teammates is always gold in those situations. With the Australian national team, we spend a lot of time traveling, a lot of time in hotels. So backgammon is sort of our game of choice, and something that we'll bust out in airport concourses and waiting for a baggage claim and in hotel lobbies all over the planet. So that's a partial list.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good. So obviously we're in the midst of the finals. The Lakers are up 2-1. So who do you think wins it all? Do you think the Lakers, get momentum after losing to Jimmy Butler and Big Face Coffee?
I do. I would love to taste some Big Face Coffee, but
$20 no matter what size.
Yeah, I feel it might be worth it. It's worth a shot at least.
I mean, you saw how he played, so it might be.
That brand might be coming to us sooner rather than later. Yeah, I sort of expect the Lakers to find a way to win the series. I would guess that they win the next 2, but I wouldn't surprise me if it took 3.
Sounds right. And since departing the Nets organization, the team signed Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, along with other various role players, and new head coach in Steve Nash. So becoming a title contender for the next few seasons is on their agenda for sure. So how do you look at this team, and what are some of your expectations?
Well, how could you not be excited about Steve Nash joining your organization? Like, I think any fan of basketball, and I've had a chance to be around him a few times. There's obviously tons of skill and gifts as a basketball player, but just the neck up stuff is incredibly special. And that's, I think, a huge part of why he's going to be so successful there. Kevin and I spent time together as, I guess he was 17 and I was 21, maybe 22, at the University of Texas when he was a freshman. And so the fact that he's now hanging out with my old friends in my old stomping grounds is really fun and a cool way for me to stay connected with the team beyond just my friendship with the other players and the staff that are there and are still there. How could you not feel like that group is the odds-on favorite to win the East next year? I'd be really surprised. And I think that the work that's been going on there for years and the building of equity and processes and culture will allow someone like Steve to step in and inherit a lot of that. And so, there's Jock Vaughn's already there. Brett Brielmeyer's already there. The performance team, the analytics department, like those guys are all together. And I don't have any doubt that Steve will be able to assimilate really quickly and bring what is obviously a ridiculous skill set into the mix. And I have no doubt about just what a humble person he is and how little he cares about his attention for him. And that, I think, is a trait that we're all could have more of if we really wanted to be successful. So I'm really excited to watch from afar.
Yeah, definitely. What would be your advice to Steve, for his first head coaching job?
Oh my God! Don't listen to idiot Australian coaches that won a few games in the G League once. I would start with. I can't accept the premise of that question. Former MVPs do not need my 2 cents. But I think that the cool thing about him that I've heard already is just how eager he is to learn, and that's being a lifelong learner serves you well in any endeavor. And so players will see that, the staff obviously sees that, and that's modeling the kind of behavior that the organization has displayed over the course of Sean's time there. So they're going to be just fine.
And then, Coach, one last question, at least on my half, is the ideology behind collaborative effort coaching. So you may have saw Kyrie Irving. He was talking about it, that on some days he wouldn't view Steve Nash as just a coach. Like maybe he could step in and coach a little bit. And KD, obviously, positions are positions. He's a player. Steve Nash is a coach. But if, say, you were in that kind of situation, would you allow some of your players maybe to make some calls on the court here and there, kind of that collaborative coaching effort, or would you kind of want to hold down your fort primarily? Or kind of it depends on, obviously, who the players are.
It doesn't depend for me. I'm firmly in the first category. Mm-hmm. Players are playing the game. They're seeing the game. They're feeling the game. Why you would ever reduce the amount of good information and feedback that they can offer and provide you in your role as someone who's trying to internalize and weight all the pieces of information you have to help shine a mirror up for the team to see what's actually going on and help them try to see a little bit into the future about what might happen soon. Our roles are in pursuit of the team performing. And so the idea that I think it's over time you're seeing, I hope a paradigm shift on this front, and it feels like there is. But I certainly in my case, I am trying to stay out of the way. I'm trying to not keep our players from using their multitudinous gifts. And maybe most importantly, trying to connect with them and help them see how much I want them to succeed and to what lengths I'm willing to go to try to help augment their strengths and mitigate their weaknesses and communicate the degree to which I'm staying up late at night dreaming about what they might be able to achieve for us and in the future. And the time that we share together in on any of these spots is short. So making the most out of that and learning from each other and helping each other and enjoying each other is a big part of how I see my role as a coach. And I think Kyrie and Kevin see it the same way, and I'm sure Steve does too.
Well said. Well, thank you again, Coach, for joining us. We really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to join Doug and I. You could just let our followers and our viewers know where can they find you on social media and kind of just take it wherever avenue you want to take it.
Oh, geez. I don't know what my Twitter handle is, but I'm sure you can find it. I'm Will Weaver on Twitter. Happy to get in touch with anybody that's interested in getting in touch. But I am certainly appreciative of you guys, your time when I worked in Long Island, and it's been good to stay in touch with you guys. And I enjoy hearing from some of my old friends, and I think like a lot of folks are excited about where the Nets are headed. So thanks for having a conversation.
Yeah, thank you. And will you be dressing up as Doctor Strange for Halloween? Because now that you have the beard, I finally see what your former players were talking about.
I was thinking Josh Groban, but yeah, we'll come up with something good. Yeah, I'm open for suggestions. Feel free to find me and send me yours.
Sounds good. Well, Chris, time to give closing remarks, and thanks so much, Coach.
Cheers. Thanks, fellas.
Okay, guys, feel free to email over any suggestions, questions, comments, or thoughts on any of our content by sending an email to wingspanpodcast@gmail.com. And do not forget to follow us on our social media accounts. But most importantly, make sure you subscribe to our podcast on your preferred listening service. And as for next time, stay classy, take care, and keep on staying safe.